You feel off, tired, or foggy, and your doctor said your labs are normal. But are they? Labs in the normal range don't tell the whole story. Don't let your doctor stop there. Knowing the difference between normal and optimal labs can free you from these symptoms. When your lab falls in the normal range, it landed in the reference range that was gathered from a large population of people. They were excluded from the list only if they had severe problems. They included folks of all ages and those who had heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and other chronic diseases that allowed their health statuses to be included. Let's use blood pressure as an example. Blood pressure of 120 was the gold standard for healthy people. As our population became more diseased, the blood pressures rose. And before you knew it, doctors were brushing off blood pressure numbers like 140/90, blaming it on age instead of disease. But hypertension was the silent killer. It's studies like Framingham that revealed the truth, that a little bit of rise in blood pressure was a big risk to your death rate. Blood pressure teaches us that normal might mean you don't have a glaring disease, but it doesn't put you in the safe zone that you're not creating or perpetuating a disease. There's several labs that teach a similar lesson. Let's look at those. Let's start with vitamin D because it's a messy one. Not even all the health professionals agree what's optimal. Vitamin D is a hormone and a vitamin at the same time and has many trickling effects throughout our body. We know that the Institute of Medicine is happy when the vitamin D level is greater than 20. And I would never be satisfied with that. They got that number because that's what it took to prevent rickets. Not optimal. You see, vitamin D acts like a hormone, which means it goes into every cell in our body. That cell interacts with the DNA found in each cell and makes unique proteins out of all of your cells. That means your heart cells make one set of protein when vitamin D is abundant. Your brain cells make other proteins when vitamin D is abundant. In my patients, I want their vitamin D to be a minimum of 50. Why? Because I know if they have a brain injury, they're going to need that level to repair the brain. Beyond the brain repair, keeping that number above 50 is linked to things like less cancer and a better immune system. Next, let's pick on triglycerides. The normal range says that anything above 150 is abnormal. And I would say that's a disaster. Triglycerides start to rise early in several of the chronic metabolic diseases. We check this lab after you've fasted for a dozen hours. It should never be in the triple digit range. It should be less than 100. Personally, I like my number to be in the 60 to 70 range. And when I start to see it creep up into the 90s, I know I've added too many carbohydrates to my diet. Next, let's go to fasting blood sugar. Normal range says it's from 70 to 99, but that is not optimal. When I look at patients over the years and watch their disease states grow, we're looking at things like obesity, high blood pressure, cholesterol problems, and growing heart disease. We see that fasting sugar creep out of the optimal range, which is from 70 to 85, into those high 80s, those low 90s, and then in the high 90s. They can hang out with pre-diabetes for 15 years with those blood sugars being in the normal range. Once again, the disease state that is creeping into your body, brain, and heart are all happening when you're out of that optimal range. Because I teach the ketogenic diet, I often get the question, how low of a blood sugar is too low? Hypoglycemia is defined by a low blood sugar where their brain doesn't work. And when my keto-adapted patients are fueling their cells with ketones, sometimes their blood sugars sink into the 50s and 60s, but they're thinking normally. So the answer on that depends on how keto-adapted are you. Check out the list of these diseases that all are growing inside people's bodies when their fasting blood sugar is at 99. The list is from birth to death and is astonishing. Ferritin deserves a public service announcement. This lab should be better educated to doctors and to the public. Ferritin is a reflection of how well your body has stored iron, and it has danger zones on the low and the high. Check out the reference range here for men and women. This is another great example of how the large population showed a bell-shaped curve, and that's where we got the numbers. Let me start with the most important, which is a ferritin that's too low. I never want my patients to have a ferritin less than 50. Why? Because I am all about peak brain performance. That ferritin sinking under 50 denies those brain cells the tool, the ingredient that it needs to build the neurotransmitters that makes us think and remember. The lower the ferritin, the higher the symptoms, until you get to 50. A high ferritin, or one that has an excessive abundance of stored iron, is linked to that oxidative stress and that shortening of your health span, shortening of your lifespan. When my patients have a ferritin above 140 for several years, I am warning them about the increased risks for cardiovascular disease, neurocognitive disease like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And we do our efforts to get the ferritin lower and get that chronic oxidative stress reduced in their body. But what's the first number I want you to work on? Lowering blood pressure does not involve avoiding salt in my clinic. Check out the next video where I show you exactly what I mean.